Do you have a structural problem or do you have a postural problem? We're going to be talking about that on today's video. But first, my name is Dr. Kresimir Jug, a chiropractor from London, Ontario, Canada, helping people get well and find health through the power of structural chiropractic and life by design principles. And like I said, on today's video, are you dealing with a postural problem? Are you dealing with a structural problem? What do you do? How do you find out? And all that good stuff. Before we get into the nitty gritty, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking you through, I'm going to be showing you how to use the orthotics, the thinking behind how we measure for them, and how you can assess and learn whether you're dealing with a postural problem or whether you're dealing with a more structural problem, and what area of your spine is it coming from, and why should you even care. So as a structural chiropractor, this is always the talking head part. So everything's time stamped, but I do think that this is important so you gain an understanding of what it is that's actually happening with your body. So when we look at particularly the structure, meaning the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, the structure, the bones, the nerves, everything is on a continuum. So typically, the damage first starts to happen at histologically at the cellular level. So there's a lack of motion and breakdown that starts to happen. And the next thing that starts to happen is the joints lose their range of motion. And I mean, you've experienced this. You've sat at a desk long enough, or you've sat in a car for enough hours where things have sat still that you have gotten up and things have felt stiff and they needed to stretch. So that's the beginning of the whole thing. Now, eventually what starts to happen is if this is repeated multiple times, and we see this with sitting, eventually what starts to happen is our bodies get used to being in this new position that we're always forcing them in. And when they're in that new position, and by the way, the reason I'm on the ground is because I'm going to be showing you the tools, but the reason that becomes a new position is because we've spent so much time like this, it starts to become comfortable. And then you'll start to notice that sitting or that slouching is typically how your body likes to handle that stress, and it just becomes a new normal. That's when you have a postural problem, right? That you can still stretch it out. You can still fix it. You can fix it by doing strength training exercises. You can fix it by stretching, by making sure that things are remaining open and tall. However, if that continues, what starts to happen is when we take x-rays and when we start to look at your spine on the inside, we start to notice narrowing discs. We start to notice bone spurs. We start to notice sclerosis, which is a thickening of the joints, meaning that they're not moving as long as possible. So we start to notice these structural changes that slowly start to happen. When those things set in, it's no longer a postural problem. It starts to become a structural problem. You can notice the soft tissues too. You know, a lot of people who have that, the Dowaggers, or I've heard it lovingly called a knuckle. In my office, I've heard it called Quasimodo or the bump. But when that starts to happen, that is a signal that your body is laying down more tissue, and it doesn't matter how many times you exercise that hump, that area of your spine is now stuck. And the reason that more and more tissue is being put on top of it is because your body literally thinks that your head is going to fall forward, so it wants to stack the tissues to try to prevent that happening. And if this continues and continues, then you're going to start to see lots of wear and tear, degeneration, arthritis, osteopenia, osteoporosis. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you two cases, and it's really important. You know, people are starting to understand it's not the idea of, if I spend a lot of time in this position, I should probably spend or learn how to become strong in this position, is not rocket science to understand, but the art of it and where you're going to find the most leverage is knowing or at least thinking more of which areas of your spine need help. So I'm gonna be showing you, we're gonna pause for a bit here. I'm gonna cut, and I'm gonna put up an x-ray, and I'm gonna show you two different cases, and I'm gonna show you how to use these tools and some of the thinking that's involved, okay? Let's go to case number 1. Okay, so here's the x-rays to case number 1. Now there's a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to. Number 1, these are not correctly marked. These are not the actual lines that we use in practice. I've drawn 2 lines on the graph. What I wanted to show you was this is a person, if you were to just look at their neck, it's curved really decently and it looks really healthy. But what I did is I drew a line from T1 to the ear, and what I want you to notice is how far forward the head is actually gone. And the reason that it's that far forward is because the first area we need to be looking to correct is not the neck, it's actually the thoracic spine where the apex of this curve is, right? So you really want to look at posture and structure, not just what's happening at the neck, not just, okay, I'm on my phone a lot, so I'm doing this. It could be a problem that's starting much lower down in your spine. It could be coming from your lumbar spine, your hips, but in this case, it's the thoracic spine. So when we're prescribing, so here's the thing with this. The first step, because these are patients in the clinic, when they're coming in for their checkups, the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that all of the vertebrae have their full range of motion possible. This is where chiropractic care comes into play. When we perform a correction, what we're actually correcting is the lack of mobility at that spinal segment. And it's not enough just to help it move once or twice. We actually have to teach it to move freely so that when we start using these other tools, you can get the maximum benefit from it. But needless to say, what I wanted to show you really simply on this first x-ray, there's a lot of head translation moving forward. The problem's in the upper thoracic spine, so we would use this. And let me show you how that plays out. So when this person does their postural corrective exercises, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be using this orthotic, but on their thoracic spine, letting their head come over and keeping this nice position like this. Because we want to target that area of the thoracic spine. And of course, when you're getting off one of these things, you always want to roll to the side and then roll up. But if we didn't measure and we didn't know, we could easily miss that, okay? Let me show you case number 2. Okay, case number 2. Now what you're gonna see is I drew the exact same lines on this case, but they're much closer together. That's because this problem isn't coming from the person's thoracic spine. Their thoracic spine, their head is upright, their posture is decent, but what you can notice is that there should be a C curve of about 40 degrees in a normal healthy neck, and we don't see that. We see a very rigid military neck with a reverse curve, right? So you can see where the curve's going the opposite way. This is the case where we want to, very similar in terms of what it looks like this, but we're going to be using this orthotic to actually help bring the correct curvature into the neck that time. So my point in showing you this as we're wrapping it up is, number 1, it's a continuum, right? If you're looking at your kids or you're looking at yourself and you're noticing poor posture, there's also a way in which you're trending. Either you're trending more towards this bad posture, and if you're trending more towards this bad posture, eventually it's going to lead to bad structure, degeneration, and damage, or you're noticing it and you're starting to pull away from it, which could be helpful in terms of not just relieving that, but helping your spine move better. And remember, it's not just the spine, it's all of the nerves coming from the different areas of your spine that we need to be concerned about as well. And the other thing is, once you have noticed that, it's really important to see a professional so you can get it examined and looked at appropriately, so you have a plan that will actually help you get to where you want to go. If you have any comments or questions, please post them below. We'd love to start a conversation around this topic. Really, really passionate about it. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.